In this video, I'm going to show you how I build my trailer. This is the trailer I designed and built during the spring of 2024, completely from scratch. This trailer is going to be a base for my SQUAREDROP camper build. Original plan was to build the SQUAREDROP at the same time, but then the life happened and I had to switch gears and work on some house remodeling projects. I'm getting back at it now and hoping to finish before the summer arrives. If you want more context about this trailer, I have another video I'm showing trailer features and briefly explaining the design and some decisions behind it. At the time, I didn't make any videos of the process, but I did take a bunch of progress photos. I will go over the images and explain how I built the trailer. I will not get into every single detail, so if you have any questions about what I did, how I did it, or why, please let me know in the comments. I'm also open to suggestions, and while my trailer is already finished, it might help others as well. This is how it all began. My first cut, using Driveway as my workspace. This is 2 by 2 by 1/8 square tube, 12 feet long. I'm cutting it down to size at 45-degree angle, as I will be miter joining tubes for the main rectangle. For cutting, I'm using 14-inch Ryobi chop saw I scored off of Craigslist for $40. You could also use angle grinder as well, but trust me, this is way faster, cleaner and more accurate. I then used my first cut stick as a guide to cut the rest of the pieces of the same size. When I had all the pieces cut for the main rectangle, I laid it out to make sure all is square and level. I tag welded all the pieces together and then took it to outside to fully weld all the seams. Here you can see the welder I'm using. This is titanium 125 flux core welder. I have it borrowed from my neighbor, but you can get one in Harbor Freight for roughly $150. From the research I did, this seemed most user-friendly welder for the beginner. It is easy to use as you don't have to mess with gas and sticks, and more than enough for this job. I cleaned all the ends with acetone and I went around and welded all 4 sides of each connection. The splatter you see is typical for flux core welders, but it is easy to clean. You can just knock off most of the beads or use angle grinder to further clean the areas. Next, I welded middle cross brace. I used scrap metal pieces to support and align brace with the rest of the frame. I cleaned the areas to be welded with acetone, tag welded first and then fully welded around, alternating between the sides to not put too much heat in one spot. I welded the rest of the braces, following the same steps I did for the middle brace. I quickly learned that it was much easier to lay bead horizontally, so I would stand up the frame and welding fillet welds. Again, I would alternate between braces and sides to keep heat to minimum. Next step was welding in additional braces to support wheel axles. I am using Flexi-Right torsion half axles that will attach to the mounting plates. First, I just tag welded pieces that will support the plates and dry fitted the plates to make sure my distances are correct and everything lines up properly. I didn't weld the plates at this time, but went ahead and fully welded plates support once I was confident all is in proper location. You will notice the 2 outermost holes on each plate are directly over frame, making it impossible to bolt the axle through the openings. I will solve this a bit later. This is the view of main frame structure complete. I added main center beam and 2 diagonals welded to the underside of main rectangle. While all the tubing so far was 1/8 of an inch thick, I decided to go 3/16 for the center beam. As you can see, I did this long weld in several passes, making sure to give it a time to cool a bit before starting another pass. This design creates a space that easily allows me to add tank box in front of the SQUAREDROP cabin. While I was waiting for the axles to show up in mail, I decided to fabricate hold downs from the scrap metal pieces I had. First, I cut 2-inch wide sections from 2-inch angle scraps. I then used drill press to drill a hole in each angle piece. Finally, I welded hold downs to the frame in locations where I expected I might need it in the future, mainly to bolt SQUAREDROP subfloor and tongue box. Once my axles showed up, I dry fitted mounting plates again and laid the axles in position. It is important to place the axles parallel with the front of the trailer, as well as to have equal distance from tip of each axle to the tongue. Once I confirmed my alignment, I marked the location on the frame. Now, to address the issue with the bolt hole over frame, I decided to use threaded inserts here to be able to bolt directly to the frame. These are heavy-duty 1/2-inch inserts. I drilled the hole into the frame and installed the inserts. Then once again, I dry fitted everything and finally went ahead and welded plates to the frame. Meanwhile, I was able to get these 4 rims through Facebook Marketplace. These are 15-inch by 9-inch steel rims. I also purchased these off-roadish tires through Amazon and had them installed on the rims. The tires measure approximately 30 inches by 11 inches wide. I installed 3 hubs and was finally able to put the wheels on and get the frame rolling. This was a big milestone, but I was not done yet. My trailer jack arrived. This is 2,000 pounds capacity weld-on jack. Short section of pipe with 4 holes is welded to the side of the tongue and actual jack slides on and secures with the pin. Next step was to protect the steel. I cleaned the frame with acetone and scuffed the surface with wire brush and sanding disc using angle grinder. I followed then with 2 coats of self-etching primer. Before Raptor lining everything, I got working on the fenders. I started with the mock-ups of what I wanted the fenders to look like. I used cardboard to form the shape of the fender. Then I used this cardboard as template to cut the steel pieces for side frames. I welded all 4 side frames, and after mocking up different weld depths, I landed on 12 inches overall fender width. I welded all together and installed the frames in place. I temporarily propped it in place with scrap tubes, but eventually fender welds will screw to the front and rear brush guard frames. Here you can see my brush guards already fabricated, but they are just held to the frame via clamps while I adjust them to proper position. Both sides of the fender frame is welded to L profile that will screw directly to the side of brush guards using threaded inserts. Original plan was for the fender to sit lower as shown, but then I realized I had very little clearance above the wheel. I ended up flipping L profiles as shown on this image to get additional room above wheel. There will be plenty of space even when suspension is bottom out now. Once I was confident with my placement, I welded brush guards to the frame and screwed on fender frames. Instead of regular ball mount, I ended up doing a lock and roll system. I got this off of Craigslist dirt cheap and prefer robustness of this connection to standard ball. I through bolted it to the main beam using two 1/4 inch thick steel plates and 1/2 inch bolts. I also welded on chain hooks at this point. All the photos I will be showing from this point will show trailer already sprayed with Raptor liner. The process was pretty straightforward. I removed fenders and all other small parts so I can spray coat them separately. I covered wheels in plastic and masked everything I didn't want to spray. Then I applied 2 coats of Raptor liner using the sprayer that came with the kit. Next, I mounted fender skins over the fender frames. The skins are 16 gauge sheet metal bent to shape. I scored the inside of fender skin with grinder to help achieve crisper bend. I do not have brake, but I was able to do this manually by hanging the piece over the table edge and clamping it with steel angle at the bend line. I then test fitted it over the frame, secured it with clamps and drilled holes for rivets. I used 1/4 inch rivets, stainless steel, to attach the skin to fender frame. I also added these stabilizer jacks. They were a bit short at full extension, so I had to add short piece of tubing to make them sit lower. These fall down as shown and extend by pressing on a little pad at the bottom. The final big item was wiring. Since I am planning to install brakes in the future, I went with 7-pin connector wiring. I purchased all my electrical items from Amazon. I used this junction box and mounted it to the side of the center tongue beam. From there, I routed wires to all my lights and pre-wired to brake locations as well. I ran my wires in plastic split conduits to provide better protection and used these clips to attach conduit to the frame. Next, I installed chains and plastic plugs at all open pipe ends. And finally, I bolted some 2x6 boards to the top of the trailer using my anchor points. These are just temporary and are meant to protect the frame while hauling materials for SQUAREDROP build. And that's it for the trailer build. Now I need to get VIN number and get the trailer weighted and registered. Then I will be ready to move forward and start building actual camper. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If I see there is more interest, I will continue making additional videos from the build process. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the next episode.